go check it out right now. Match number 3 of MTGO Masters Seasons 2. Mason Clark on Gorios, Nathan Steuer on Mardu Energy. Martin, who do you like in this matchup?
I think I like the Gorius deck on paper because there is not really a lot of counterplay to it from the Mardu Energy deck other than Thoughtseize. You don't really have all that much interaction. But this Gorius deck has a lot of like weird looking hands that kind of look like it's good enough to keep, but in reality, like you're really looking for those like turn one Thoughtseize myself, turn to Gorios, or kind of hands that you have the broken cards rather than turn to Frog and let's hope for the best.
Yeah, and we do see that Thoughtseize on the side of Nathan, so maybe next turn you're gonna deploy the Thoughtseize and scout out for any Gorios or Graveyard Enablers that are in Mason's hand. But Mason just going with the turn 2 Frog here. Pretty good answer to the Ragavan, but we also see a Static Prison in Nathan's hand now. So maybe we want to Static Prison this Frog and just connect with the Ragavan and then Thoughtseize afterwards?
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. Like if you put Ragavan in your deck, the goal is to to make sure you can hit with it on turn two. So one way or another, I want Nathan to try to kill that Frog. Looks like he's gonna go for the discharge first.
I call this the mind rot discharge because it literally just makes the opponent discard 2 cards. Because we do know that Nathan has the answer to the Frog in the Static Prison, so this one Galvanic Discharge was just mind rot. You discard 2 cards.
Yeah, perfectly reasonable, although it is a lot less effective against a deck that already wants to put cards in the graveyard. So Mason was pretty happy to discard that Atraxa anyway. I think that probably might have happened anyways, having the Atraxa go to the graveyard before that Static Prison resolve, just in case Mason draws a Gorius next turn. But yeah, that follow-up Thoughtseize from the treasure is pretty good. That's going to leave Mason with only one card left.
The one single Psychic Frog left, and that's pretty brutal for Mason. Got most of his
Yeah.
hand picked apart between that Discharge and the Thoughtseize here.
I think
Wow,
he does
and
have a Truxa in the graveyard, though. So with all that card selection, with all that surveil effects, Mason has a couple of turns to find Gorius.
yeah, the top decks are very live, but that Frog underneath the Static Prison is not coming back for some amount of turns since Nathan has 5 energy already. Looks like we might be deploying an Amped Raptor here. Okay, going for the Surveil, checking the top, seeing if there's anything good for the Amped Raptor. See something he likes, keeps it on top. And it's another Static Prison. Wow.
Wow. Yeah, great start for Nathan here. Mason down to Hallowed Fountain, which I think Nathan knows about from that earlier Thoughtseize. So this is pretty much down to Mason having to draw Gorius in 2 or 3 draw steps.
Yeah, notably that Surveil from Mason just got disrupted by this Ragavan, took the top card of his library, so no deck manipulation from Mason here. Is probably going to have to go fetch another Surveil land at end step and just pray it's
Mm.
Gorios. Also have the Priest in the graveyard next turn, but there's a lot of pressure coming from Nathan's side, so I'm not even sure if Mason's going to have the luxury of paying the 3 life plus the fetching and the shocking. It's going to be close.
Oh yeah, you're right. There is a priest. Yeah, I mean,
'Cause Mason does have to fetch and surveil at end step here, and then he has to shock in the Hollow Fountain, so he's going to be down to 8. The Priest is going to cost him 3 life. He's going to be down all the way to 5. And then Flage is going to put him to 2 even.
wow.
And the Unearth of Flage, or sorry, the Escape of Flage will kill him. So this Priest is now off the table.
Oh, there's not enough fodder in the graveyard to bring back Mage, right? Or can you choose not to pay for the static prisons?
Yeah, you can let both of the static prisons go, and then that'll be enough
Okay,
cards.
that works then. Yeah.
Notably, if Nathan actually played the Ajani prior to hitting the Flage off the Amtraptor, it could have flaged your own cat token and then flipped Ajani and then domed him for 4 upstairs using Ajani's 0 ability.
All right, let's
Looks
see what
like,
happens now. Yeah, Priest getting unearthed. Brings
here
back a
comes
Troxa, but
Atraxa.
yeah, that was basically 2 life. So what does he even have to get out of this situation where the Flage comes back next turn? How does he gain life? He can sort with his own Atraxa, but then he doesn't have any blockers.
I don't think there's an out for Mason here. Has no land drops, no mana. I think we're going to game 2 here, Martin.
Yeah, let's see what
So
we get
long
out of
as
this. Yeah, let's see what let's see what we get out of this Atraxa, but I'm not sure if I can find a good combination of cards.
so long as Nathan sees the line of sack the static prison, sack the static prison, it's a wrap. I guess if you hit Solitude off this Atraxa, maybe you can grow one of your frogs large enough and then Solitude the frog.
Oh yeah, the frogs are coming back. You're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, looks like Mason's backing it in. Going for game 2.
Yeah, let's take a look at these sideboards. I think it's just the same exact Goryo's build that you played, correct? Or is it a little different?
I think it's the same, and I would be very surprised if anyone took a different list than Matt's, considering he went 10-0 at the Pro Tour. If you're gonna play a PT Gorgeous list, that's probably got to be Matt's.
Yeah, I believe it's the same list. So maybe the Celestial Purges come in for Mason. Good way of dealing with something like Fable and Flage. I could see the Nile spell bombs for Flage. Maybe a copy of Teferi because it's pretty good against Amp Raptor. And definitely the Wrath of the Skies, right? Wrath of the Skies is like a home run in this matchup.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. That is coming in for sure. Thoughts he's getting boarded out. That seems reasonable. Your opponent, you can't really disrupt them very easily with them having too many one drops, two drops, like just too many cheap creatures. You're gonna take your first turn off for casting Thoughtseize, and your opponent's just gonna show three one drops, two drops. So it doesn't really uh, matter what you take. They're still gonna be able to curve out and have a nice opening draw. The only reason to have Thoughtseize on the play might be as like a preemptive measure to try to get rid of the Nihil spell bombs.
Yeah, this also Ken's Mardu energy list. So he's got 12 sideboard cards for Storm. One of them that doubles up in this matchup is the 3 copies of Nile Spellbomb, which are going to be incredible for disrupting the graveyard. Looks like Nathan is opting to board out a Nightmare because it doesn't really need to be super grindy, and also leaving the 3rd Flage in the sideboard. I don't think Flage is necessarily at its best in this matchup. It can go upstairs in the late game, but it's kind of anemic.
Yeah, I
Well,
like
the
putting that
discharge is out.
fourth. Yeah, I like putting that fourth Ragavan back in. You kind of really want to be aggressive.
Yeah, it lines up a little bit poorly against Falaji, but I think overall it's still pretty good. Nathan's opening hand is super solid, and I think that's a snap keep for Nathan. And looks like it's probably going to be a snap keep for Mason as well, because that Wrath, this guy's looking like it's going to do a lot of work.
Yeah, a bunch of surveillance. So Mason's development's gonna be a bit slower than normal, but he does have the frog that he can use to pitch Grizzlebrand in the graveyard. So he's pretty much just looking for a Gorios here.
Yeah, turn 2 Frog is probably what we're going to see on the side of Mason, because he can shock that Godly Shrine into play and then kind of use some of the slower mana development later. See him hovering over the Godly Shrine, shocks it in, and here comes the Frog.
Yeah, the one awkward thing for Mason here is that both of the lands in his hand come into play tap. So he's not gonna be able to Wrath next turn.
Yeah, no
Uh,
Wrath for 1, but maybe you just want to wait and try to get a little bit greedier with it and maybe Wrath for 2.
Yeah, if that frog is not getting removed, then obviously you're more than fine just sitting on it, kind of brick walling the opponent.
Comes to Johnny. You like making this guy to souls fly here? The problem is, like, Mason could discard 3 cards and then make the frog fly and then block. That's something Mason's interested in doing.
Uh,
It's gonna cost him a lot of cards. Does get to leave the Gristlebrand in the graveyard though, so he can bin Ephemerate, bin Gristlebrand, and then bin one of his lands, most likely. Fly, and then eat this guide.
so how many cards do you have to discard? You have to discard Gristlebrands, 2. You discard 2 lands, that's 4 power, and you exile that. Yeah, is that worth it?
Yeah, you're losing the Gristlebrand, the Ephemerate, and a land, most likely. Just to eat this guy to souls. Probably not worth it.
Ooh. Priest looks decent, but it is pretty slow.
It is flageable as well, so probably not long for this world. This card's the Ephemerate. Interesting. Mason just wants a card draw. I don't wonder if he's going to discard the Gristlebrand before damage. Looks like no. Not really worried about getting any extra points of damage in this matchup because there's a lot of life gain on the side of Nathan between the guide and the flage. Nathan picked up a copy of Thoughtseize.
Yeah, that's a good pickup here. That's gonna be able to deal with the Wrath.
Question for you,
But
Martin.
yeah,
Do
well,
you
Nathan.
flage?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Nathan also does have to deal with the priest, so he's not gonna be able to play the Thoughtseize. Actually, I do like playing the Flage here. Like, there's a pretty high chance your opponent is on either Grizzlebrand or Atraxa. If you just let them reanimate it next turn, then you're in a lot of trouble.
Going for the Amped Raptor into the Amped Raptor. That is a lot of energy.
Yeah, it looks like Nathan has other plans.
Yeah, I guess going for the Thoughtseize as well. So no answer to this priest means that Gristlebrand's coming back next turn. Now I guess the question becomes, is Gristlebrand even good enough?
Yeah, Nathan might just be putting on so much pressure that Grizzlebrand's just gonna be +7 life. Uh,
Well, the Gristlebrand doesn't have haste. So no
yeah,
attacks from the Gristlebrand, meaning that if Nathan finds a line where he can flage his own cat token, flip a Johnny, and maybe just dome him with a Johnny 0, this game could be over really fast. I always love the flage your own cat token lines in this deck.
mm,
Or just discharge your own cat token and make 2 energy. Flipping the Ajani is very real. Can also just Nightmare Sacrifice, but there's no targets in the graveyard for Nathan right now, so can't sacrifice to the Nightmare quite yet. But yeah, Mason's at 7. If Mason gets back this Gristlebrand, he will die.
yeah, puts it to 4, and that means he's dead.
Yeah, dead to the Ajani. Tread carefully, Mason.
Yeah, I feel like we've only seen these, like, medium draws from the Glorious deck so far, and not really this is not really showing, what the deck is capable of. Like, there's a lot of draws where you have Grief Ephemerate or even a Solitude Ephemerate in a matchup like this is pretty insane. And so far, we've kind of just had the draws where, like, the player played a Philology or a Frog, didn't really do much. And if you're just playing this weird mid-range slow deck, with a couple of just 1-for-1 cards, or you even have to 2-for-1 yourself to play Grief or Solitude, then you're not really going to be winning too much in a format like Modern.
Yeah, we also haven't seen any turn 1 Surveil land and the turn 2 Gorios yet. Those are actually, like, the dream draws for
That's
Gorios.
Yeah, that's the dream. It just feels like whenever you watch someone play the deck, they just always have those busted draws. But then whenever you try it yourself in a Magic Online league, it just feels like you
It's just
can get a playable
disappointment.
draw step. Yeah.
"Let's go, flays your own cat." Flip Ajani, 0 the Ajani, Dome Mason for 4, 5 even, and that's the
Yeah,
game.
great line by Nathan.
Wow. An absolute masterclass of a game by Nathan, just didn't even give Mason any room to breathe here.